We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It's Thursday, and because it's Thursday, that means it's Old Soul Day. She's a regular guest on the program, and I'm very grateful that she shows up. It makes the show so much better, and it's so much easier for me when I don't have to do all the thinking. I let Old Soul do all the thinking, and I just throw in some color commentary here and there. It's fucking perfect for me because I'm typically lazy. So, Old Soul, thanks for joining us. I hear you're coming off a 6 streak, so I appreciate you toughing this out and showing up today.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. Anything that I can do to help, I don't care. I'm at home, I'll walk from one room to the next room. It's all good.
Well, you know what? When I heard you were sick, I was thinking, oh, that's too bad. She probably shouldn't come on. And then I realized she better fucking come on. She went to a goddamn prison and talked to prisoners. I can at least get her on fucking Zoom. No, I'm serious. I think we've
Oh
all
yeah, I
gone
could
through the
do it.
sickness, but you're feeling better now.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's good.
Yeah, I'm feeling better now. Yeah, I started moving around a little bit yesterday, and then it's crazy. When I was sick, I was listening to um all of these like Trump talking about vaccinations. So I guess Republicans are against vaccinations
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
One guy was saying something about colloidal silver. And the first thing I thought to myself was like, they're all going to be walking around looking like a bunch of like, I don't know, like degenerate Smurfs or something that they, because that stuff, like once it gets into your system, it changes your skin color to like
Really?
this ashy gray, bluish kind of color.
Wow.
Yeah, you can't take that stuff. It's so toxic. It will change your skin color. If nobody knows what it does to your skin color, like just seriously, like do a quick image search on Google for colloidal silver, and then just look at the images and watch the color that it will change you to like an ashy gray, like a mild blue kind of color.
You
And
know,
then they have to like go in and try to suck the toxin out of your body. But when they do that, the toxin is not the only mineral that is taken out.
no.
And that does have lifelong consequences to that. Some guy just passed away. He was like living in a tube. He was like 70 something from polio. And so all of these diseases that were eradicated are making a comeback. So I was
Wow.
laying in the bed sick, and my daughter's like, "You should go to the doctor." I was like, "I'm not leaving this house with all them diseases out there. Whatever's going on with me, I'm gonna pass it naturally." So,
Well, if I was going to do something that changed my skin color, it wouldn't be to an ashy gray. I mean, ashy gray is what I imagine when you're dead. You're sitting in the coffin, you got a bad funeral director, and you're kind of gray. It reminds me, the first time I ever went to a funeral, I must have been 7 or 8 years old. I was up in northern Minnesota, and my grandmother was going to a funeral. I said, "Grandma, I want to go." She goes, "Why do you want to go?" I said, "I've never been to a funeral. I want to see a funeral." So we're out in the backwoods, and we go up to this funeral. And all I remember is walking up to the casket, seeing this guy as gray and as bad looking as possible. And the moment I looked at him, my grandmother's hands came across my eyes and pulled me away from the fucking coffin. So I only got a quick glimpse. Grandma was trying to protect me there. So, yeah. Yeah, I'm not going to put any shit in my system that's going to change my color. I happen to have become accustomed to this pasty white face, and I'm going to stick with it.
I've been in a house for a while, and we're coming off of winter, so I could use some color, but I wouldn't do anything to make myself
Oh,
change
hell no.
gray. I wouldn't do that. I don't know. I don't get it. Um, and I remember like when I was younger, we used to get vaccinations at school. Um, I don't know when preventing your children from getting polio, measles, mumps. I don't know when that prevention turned into something that is not, especially for like me being like a Black person in America, because I know they used to experiment on us, like the OBGYNs, like all those tools that they use now. They
Right.
used to experiment on Black women to get those tools. So I would always assume that I just never thought that white people would hesitate to get vaccinations because they don't have that history. So I don't know where it's coming from.
Well, they didn't.
I
They
guess it's
didn't.
just the misinformation. I don't know.
Yeah, they didn't used to shy away from these shots. I remember being a kid in grade school, and 1 or 2 days a year, everybody'd go down to the gym, get in line, and you'd one by one get a
Hmm.
shot in the arm, and it would be like a gun.
Yeah.
You go boom, and you'd be
Hmm.
done. And everybody had to do it, and everybody hated that day, but there was never any question that you needed to get it done. The schools wanted you to get it done. The parents wanted you to get it done. It wasn't until years later when people started coming up with these conspiracy theories that people are questioning it. But when it comes to polio and measles and scarlet fever and all this shit, you want to get the shot. You don't want to get that fucking disease.
Yeah, not only that, but if you have a child that has aspirations for higher learning or the military, I didn't know this, but my daughter has a friend that he's going to school out here, but I don't know which, I can't remember what state he's from, but he didn't get any vaccinations. He was like homeschooled and stuff because you couldn't go to you. I don't know if you can now or not, but you can't go to public school if you don't have vaccinations.
Right.
And so he was homeschooled and they didn't get vaccinations. But when he moved out here to go to college, all of those vaccinations that he didn't get when he was a child, he had to get all of those vaccinations before he was fully admitted. And so he was like fever and he wasn't really feeling too well. And I was just like, I don't know why your mother wouldn't want you to get vaccinated. And he was like, she's an idiot. But in the military, any kind of higher education, there are certain professions, medical professions, stuff like that, that even though you're not getting your children vaccinated now, they're still going to get it later on. And
Right.
you're making them get it all at once instead of, over a period of time. So I don't get it. I don't know where it's coming from, but I was just sick and I was like seeing that stuff and I was just like, where's this coming from? I don't know where it originated from, but
Well, and if you're going to
and it's
serve it,
crazy because the parents that are preventing their children from getting vaccinations, all of these parents got vaccinations when they were younger
yeah,
and they're fine. So
yeah.
why is it that it's, I don't know. I'm not going to try to make sense out of it because can't make sense out of nonsense. So
Well,
I'm just going to leave that there.
as much as the Republicans don't want to admit it too, is if you want to go into the military, you get tons of shots before they let you into the process. So
Mhm.
I don't know. It's just this weird conspiracy theory bullshit that cropped up, and a certain number of us believe it. Before we get started here, I need to make a confession. I won't say I'm ashamed of this, but I probably should have gone with discretion as the better part of valor, but I felt like I needed to do it. In November, I don't know if you were listening at that time, but in November, I had a Trumplafuck on the podcast. His name was HVAC Jeff. You might remember him. And
Yeah,
he
I
claimed
remember him.
he claimed to be the greatest debater on TikTok. And I said, well, come on my show. We'll see how good you are. And and he was on the show, and you know, you don't have to believe me. You can go check the podcast. It's still up and still available, but it didn't go well for him. And but the one mistake I thought I made by in that podcast was, he was fairly easygoing and attempting to be polite. So I was a little easier on him than I probably should have been. But it still didn't go well for him. And after the podcast, he came to me and he goes, "What the fuck is up with your followers?" I go, "What do you mean?" He said, "They're all over me. They're trying to get me banned." And I said, "Jeff, I don't tell people to do that. I don't care if you get banned. I don't think you're a horrible guy. I don't even think you believe what you're saying." I said, "But you have to understand, with the number of followers I have, I don't have control over these people. If you say shit they don't like, they're coming after you." And he says, "Well, you have to do one of my lives too." I said, "I'd be happy to do one of your lives, but understand that if my peers know that I'm going to be doing this live, they're going to show up. I have 300,000 followers. You have 3,000 followers. you're going to get fucking buried before I even say a word. He goes, yeah, maybe you're right. And then he just kind of disappeared and I didn't hear from him. Then about a week and a half ago, he sent me an email. He says, hey, you owe me to come on one of my lives. And I go, I don't care. I'll come on one of your lives if you want to. And then he had a live like 20 minutes later. And I wasn't there because I didn't even know he had a live. So he's telling everybody, oh, Mike's a pussy. He won't even show up. He's afraid of me. He's this and that. And so I heard about that. And then I heard about another time he was doing the same thing. And I'm getting a little annoyed. I get this thing in me. You just want to crush a dumb fuck like this if he won't shut up. So I finished the podcast yesterday and I was just looking through TikTok and there was HVAC Jeff doing a live. And I'm watching him and I'm going, wow, this guy doesn't say anything. He doesn't have any facts. He's just talking circles around people. And I'm pretty good at talking circles. So maybe I should just join in unexpected and unannounced. And I did. I showed up and he cleared everybody off the board just to talk to me. He was excited about the prospect of talking to me, not because I'm a great guy or because he even thought I was going to lose to him in a debate, but because I represent a lot of people who follow me, and that means he's going to get a lot of views. He doesn't care if it's bad or good. So this time when I went on to the live, I took a different tact. I took a Trumplafuck tact. I'm gonna be in your face and I'm gonna be talking some shit. So when he let me in, I said, yeah, I just had to stop by. I've been here. You've been talking shit about me, suggesting all this stuff. And Jeff, you know as well as anybody, the last motherfucker that's scared of you is me. After that little performance and the thing, he goes, well, I think it went pretty. I go, I don't give a fuck what you think. You don't know what you're talking about. It's on audio. It's an audio recording. Anybody can fucking listen to it. So he's trying to talk circles around me and he says, we're getting kind of emotional. I said, I'm not emotional. I'm just angry by somebody who's supporting somebody trying to overturn this election. He goes, well, I don't. I go, don't think. It doesn't work for you. So I'm just ripping this guy to shreds. And he keeps talking in circles. And I said, let's talk a fact. One fact. That's all. State something that you believe. What is one thing that Donald Trump has done positively in this country? And he says, well, he built the wall and he had the largest tax cut in the history of this country. I thought, motherfucker, you gave me a gift. I said, first of all, Jeff, it wasn't the largest tax cut in history. It was maybe the third largest. So it wasn't the largest. So right there is a lie. Either you're believing Donald Trump or you're making shit up. I said, secondly, he gave $2 trillion to rich people in perpetuity, but he gave us crumbs, but it had an expiration date, which is now passed. And now not only is that expiration date gone, our taxes are getting higher every 2 years. So explain the positive about that. And of course, he talked in circles again. I said, what don't you like about Joe Biden? He goes, oh, all the different policies. I go, which one? He goes, like the CHIPS Act. I go, do you even understand what the CHIPS Act is? Remember when we ran out of chips?
Act.
Remember when we ran out of the CHIPS Act? What ran out of the chips and no cars they couldn't get the cars going. So Joe Biden decides to enact this CHIPS Act, have the chips made in this country, create more jobs for the people. I said, so are you telling me that you don't like the idea of creating more jobs in this country? You'd rather keep sending it over to China. What's with you and China? And he was getting confused. Anyway, I don't want to belabor that. But what happened was I don't know if you noticed, I have a tendency to swear now and again. And when you start spewing facts that Trumplafucks, yeah. But when you start spewing facts that Trumplafucks start to dislike or can't answer to, the obvious happened. I got reported. I got reported a bunch of times. I was getting mass reported on his live. Yeah, and then Jeff did something, and a lot of people think he did it because he was afraid, but actually he was kind of doing me a solid at that point. As soon as I start getting reported like that, he didn't want that to happen. He's telling, don't report him, because he wanted to continue the conversation. But when I started getting really reported, he dropped me from the live. And he did that to
Mhm.
save me from any damage to my, I don't know that it would have damaged my account, but that's what he thought. And that's why he did it. And he said, well, come on back. We'll calm him down. And I couldn't go back because now I was not allowed to go back and probably wouldn't have gone back. Point is that he said I owed him. I gave him what he wanted. I stayed there until he kicked me out. Fuck it. I'm done. I don't want to hear about HVAC Jeff again. He's not worth my time, our time, or anybody's time because he's a fucking idiot. Anyway, I had to own up to that because that happened right after I did the podcast yesterday. And I'm not going to do it again. I did what I said I would do. Fuck them. It's over.
That sounds like with what they do on Fox News with the liberal commentator.
Yeah.
Um, I can't remember what her name is, but the moment that she starts spewing facts, you will see like the other panel members, they will all just start like yelling, talking over her. They won't let her get her words in. And what it is, it's just a way of preventing the truth from being told because they
Right.
do know that there is power in the truth and they will never want you to speak truth to power. So that sounds like even if he wasn't doing it, there were people that were listening that knew that fact and they did not want that. And so that's why they were mass reporting. But that is such a Republican thing to do.
Yeah, it is.
I don't really talk about it, but my daughter's boyfriend, he has an uncle that was a hardcore Trump supporter, but he has been like turning the corner slowly. And he'll text me out of the blue and he'll just like, say something. And I can tell that nobody else is talking to him or listening to him. And I never tell him the facts. I just ask simple questions. When
Yeah.
he talks about the migrant crisis, I'll ask a simple question like if it was that bad, then why would Republicans have to concoct stories about migrants? Like the Brit woman, she made up this whole elaborate story about a woman being trafficked under the Biden administration. And it's just like, if there was so many examples of migrants in this country doing that, they wouldn't have to make up an example. They would be able to just point out all these millions of examples that they have. So why do you think if there's so many real examples, why do they have to make up fake examples? And it's just kind of like, he will think about it and he will come up with the right answer. But recently, what is bothering him the most, believe it or not, is Trump not being able to pay his bail.
Yeah.
And he texts me, and I guess on Fox News, I haven't seen it myself, but so apparently they're asking billionaires, and somebody put a post out there that's saying, like, why doesn't this person help Trump out? Why doesn't this person give Trump money? And he's saying, why are they trying to give Trump a handout? Like, I'm not the party of handouts. Like, he doesn't believe in like the welfare system and stuff like that, which we disagree on, but he's been taught this his whole life, like being a Republican, we don't give handouts. There's welfare queens, there's people living off of the system and all this other crap that he has in his brain. But now they are pretty much begging millionaire and billionaire Republicans to give Trump money so that he can put up his bond while he's appealing.
Yeah.
And for me, it's just like if he's a billionaire multiple times over, by his own account, he's a 10 billionaire, he's a billionaire 10 times over. But that is not the fact that he's a billionaire that can't post a bond in his mind. It's why are they asking people to give Trump money to post his bond? That's what is like throwing him off. And so now he's saying that even if he does show up, he may leave the presidency blank and then just vote down ballot, but he's
Yeah.
not going to vote for anybody. That's
That's
where he's
fine.
at now. It's not the divisiveness. It's not the fact that he lies all the time. It's not his hate rhetoric. It's none of those things. It's that Trump is open to getting a handout and Republicans are willing to give him a handout.
Yeah.
I
Well,
cannot rationalize that. And I don't know what question to ask him to make him see that differently. I'm
well,
hoping that he will get there because he is reaching out and talking to me. I just, that doesn't make, like, nothing else bothers you, but the fact that Trump will take a handout does.
well, he's
That's what
been,
got him to say, you know what, this might be a little too much for me.
well, that's
It's
all he does
weird.
is take handouts. That's all he's ever done is take handouts. You know, there's a simple question to ask.
Right.
He's the one that says that Mar-a-Lago is worth well over $1 billion. He says it's worth over $1 billion. And he also says he doesn't owe anybody anything. So if in fact he owns Mar-a-Lago free and clear, and it's worth over $1 billion, how hard would it be to get a
Mhm.
second mortgage for a $500 million on $1 billion property? First of all, it's not worth $1 billion. Second of all, it's probably leveraged to the fucking hilt. Uh, People are wondering why rich people don't bail Donald Trump out. And my question is, why would they? I mean, it's one thing to help a guy out because you're going to get something out of it, whether it be a financial return or property or influence, but he has none of those things available to him. So anybody giving him money is basically pissing the money away because there's no way to recoup that. He doesn't have the cash.
Yeah.
It's looking like he doesn't have the equity in his properties, and he doesn't have influence because he's this dumbass sitting in a dirty diaper down in Mar-a-Lago. And they might say, well, maybe he'll become president. Well, there is no path for him to become president. The odds are so much against him being president that it's not a good gamble. Nobody's going to hand him the money unless they've got so much money and they're just evil fucks and they want to throw a hitch into this whole thing. But even that's not going to work. I personally don't care if he gets the money from some other person and he posts it. You know, I'd like to see his stuff be liquidated, but it's going to be anyway, because when he doesn't win the appeal, then that money's going to have to come from somewhere. The people who are taking the money will take it out of the account, and then Donnie's going to have to deal with the benefactor. The other thing Donnie has
Yeah.
to deal with is this. If somebody out of the blue hands him $500 million, well, then he's got to pay taxes on $500 million too. So he doesn't have $500 million. He's going to need $750 million or something like that in order to cover the taxes and cover the bond. It makes no sense because nobody has anything to gain by helping Donald Trump at this point. He doesn't have anything to give.
Instead of me answering his question or talking to him about that, I think I'm just going to forward this what you posted.
Absolutely.
Because I don't know. To me, it's just like, you know, out of everything with Donald Trump, really, it's the handout that has you like, it's a bridge too far. Um, I don't understand that logic, and I do have to think about that myself, to where other people's brains are when it comes to Trump. Um, I don't understand everything else being something that you can overlook, but when it comes to him taking a handout, that's where you draw the line. He's not going to be surprised hearing me say this at all, but I do think that the more that this goes on and the more that he's exposed, there will be something, no matter how minute it is, that is going to cause some of his more hardcore supporters to pause and
Yeah.
ask themselves certain questions. And I do think that might be the trick to turning on something inside of their brains, is just making them question what it is that they believe and what it is that they think. And the fact that Trump is not able to pay a bond is inevitable that they are going to start questioning that. The fact that, and the way that he put it, and I haven't seen it for myself, so I can't confirm it, but he's saying like, you know, Fox is like pushing the guest, like, well, why can't you and other people get together and help him post this bond? And I'm pretty sure he's not the only person that's asking that question, why other people have to help him do that.
Right.
But for him, and I'm pretty sure he's not the only one, Trump being exposed for not having the money that he claims he has, it is going to make a difference. This is one person that I know personally that it has him questioning
Well, one
Trump.
question,
And
one question I would have you ask this gentleman or any other
you're
Republican
asking
for
him, I'm
the,
going to forward the video.
okay. The question I would have is, you're telling me you don't like welfare. You don't like subsidizing people. It's against your better sensibilities to not provide welfare. Then what do you call $2 trillion in tax cuts to rich people? What do you call oil subsidies? What do you call farm subsidies? This is all welfare, and this is all stuff Republicans support. So don't tell me you don't like welfare. You just don't like giving it to people who need it as opposed to people who don't need it. So yeah, you do fucking like welfare, and you support it every goddamn day. You support Republicans. It's ridiculous. You know, Donald Trump, regardless of what happens on Monday, if he doesn't come up with a bond, and it doesn't look like he's going to be able to, I'm not surprised. This may be one of the most damaging things to Donald Trump because he is a narcissist, and you can threaten to put him in jail or threaten him with lawsuits and all this stuff. But if you take a narcissist and you embarrass them, reveal who they truly are. I mean, they put on a mask. I'm rich, I'm famous, I'm powerful, I'm strong, I'm smart. When you pull the curtain away and none of that is true, they are revealed as the weak ass bitch they are, and that is their worst nightmare. And that's one of the things I believe is going to crush him emotionally and why he's going to have trouble continuing on.
I think that it will make him more unhinged. And I do think as many people that were not paying attention before during an election year, watching him unravel and become unhinged, it's just a reminder of why he was not reelected. So I think Democrats, it's our responsibility to tell the truth and expose that. But I do think sometimes people have to see that for themselves. And I think the way that Trump is right now, the way he's behaving, the rhetoric, I think what it is he himself is reminding people why he is unfit. And on top of that, you have the jobs that's being created. You have Biden with, as much as he's going through, pretty much a positive message. There's nothing that we can't do. We can overcome this. And, that message, as well as the truths that people like you and I are going to keep telling. I think that is what's going to make a difference. I'm not sure. I know that the financial aspect is going to be a difference. I'm learning that firsthand myself. I believed it, but now I'm like seeing it in real time that it will affect people who do support him. That is going to have a huge aspect on it. The criminal trials, maybe not so much, because for whatever reason, these people are willing to overlook the fact that he sexually assaulted a woman because he used his fingers instead of his penis. They are willing to overlook that. So I think with the criminal trials, they can justify it within themselves. It's a witch hunt. He's the only one being charged, blah, blah, blah. They could justify that. But the financial aspects of it, and then just the hardcore truth, I think it'll be too much for some people to overlook. Of course, he'll have his diehard supporters that'll never wake up, but I do think that it will change more people than what we think it will change.
Well, I think that, believe it or not, the whole criminal thing, the whole sexual abuse thing, people see him as kind of a rogue going against the government, going against the grain, and they kind of like that. But you're absolutely right. The one area that's going to be hard for them to forgive, they see Donald Trump as a superhero because he's got a lot of money, a lot of power, and a certain amount of notoriety. Now, when you take that away and your superhero is no longer a superhero, he's revealed as a Clark Kent or whatever, that's not going to be something they're going to accept. They'll accept a rich guy, a powerful guy, being caught up in sexual abuse or getting sued or whatever like that. That's just Donnie Trump. He's a rogue. He's a rebel. He's going against everybody. He's fighting against everybody. But when you finally tell people he's in fact a weak motherfucker, that's when people are going to step away.
Yeah, it's kind of like I had an uncle who used to have these old like hologram cards, like sports cards, where you would like tilt them and the image would change a little bit. I
Yeah.
do think it's kind of going to be something like that because right now they're looking at like the NFT version of Trump with the muscles and whatever weird version of him. And we are seeing him, what do you call him, like floppy? What you call him, flop sweat and all that stuff.
Flop sweat.
That's what the
Yeah.
rest of us see. Yeah, that's what the rest of us see. So I do see that image kind of like tilting a little bit in their way. It's just kind of like which part of the image are they going to stop on? And
Right.
I think it's just so bad to the point to not everyone can overlook that. And then we can even see with the polling results in elections. Um, he's the only person on the ticket right now, and there's still, so many people voting for Nikki Haley. She's not even on the ticket, or they're voting uncommitted and all this other stuff. Like they are not voting for him. So if he doesn't have the support of his entire party, he doesn't have independents, there's no way he's going to get women. And Democrats do seem pretty united with Joe Biden. It's
Yeah.
just, they're looking at it as 2016, where it could be another upset. But it's not the same when we know who he is and he's been exposed. A lot of us already knew who he was, but some of them didn't. But now he's been fully exposed, and it's not a same thing as 2016. And I know a lot of people feel that way, or we don't want to see a repeat of 2016. This is completely different circumstances than it was in 2016. Completely different.
Yeah, you can't compare 2016 to 2024. Hell, you can't compare 2020 to 2024 because Donald Trump is a different man. More has been exposed by him. 2016, people didn't like Hillary Clinton, so they took a flyer on Donald Trump. I knew who he was, but I had no idea how bad it would get. I would have been a lot more worried in 2016 when he got elected had I known all I know now. It's yeah, there's no way he's going to win. And you can look at the polls and say, oh, it's so close. But there's some issues to look at that aren't necessarily the polls, like you mentioned with the primaries. Joe Biden's getting
Mhm.
80 to 95% of the Democratic vote. There's a fair amount of unity on the Democratic side. On the Republican side, Donald Trump is running unopposed. Nikki Haley's not even on the ballot,
Oh,
and she's getting 20% of the vote, which tells me people just don't want to vote for Donald Trump. If you've got 20 or 25% of your very own party not willing to vote for you, they'll either do what this person they'll either vote Biden or they won't vote at all. But either way, it benefits Biden. So if you don't have unity in your party, there is no way you can win the election. Just no way you can win the election. And then you look at the thing that Donald Trump always loved to talk about, the money. How's the
mhm.
money going? Well, Joe Biden's got $150 million in his war chest. He's fine. He's doing ads. He's doing all this stuff. Donald Trump's got so little money, he's cutting back on rallies because he can't afford to put it together. So if you've got part of your own party that aren't willing to vote for you, you can't fundraise, the Democrat is kicking your ass in terms of fundraising. Tell me about the polls all day, but that tells me a lot about what's coming in November.
Yeah, and it's the kind of they want to, I don't know how to say it, they want to misrepresent the polls, because they look at polls before people vote. They look at the polls that's predicting what's going to happen, and they're hanging on their hats on the predicting polls, right? But they want to skip over the exit polls, which people have just voted. This is actual, like, factual polling. So this isn't a prediction. This isn't a maybe. This isn't a probability or any of that. This is the data from an exit poll from people who just voted with the numbers to back it up. And they're not paying attention to any of that.
Right. And
So I do think their own ignorance and blindness to the truth and the sheer amount of enabling is not helping Trump at all. The enabling is doing absolutely nothing but helping him. It's any type of addiction, they always say you have to hit rock bottom first. He has nobody there That's like, for me, I've always thought when it comes to like my younger brother and he has his addiction issues, one thing my grandmother told me when it comes to him is tough love is love. It's just a different form of love.
Right.
So don't look at it as you love this person any less, you're doing this person any disservice, but the truth is not going to hurt this person. And I think there is so much enabling there with Trump that it is to the point to where it is hurting him far more than it's helping him. The
Right.
only way that it helps him is through his ego and his ego being stroked. And you don't win an election from your ego being stroked.
No, no, you don't. And you know, the thing is, there's one thing that is the tipping point. There's one thing that is the point of no return that the polls don't always acknowledge. What we know for a fact is if Donald Trump is convicted of a felony, that changes everything. It pushes everything over to Joe Biden and people start abandoning Donald Trump. Now, people are worried about all these other court cases, but we know the Manhattan District is set to start mid-April. It'll go about 2.5 months. So we're in June or something when it's finally said and done. Donald Trump has 34 felony charges against him. He will get convicted of multiple felony charges. And if that's the tipping point and that changes everything, you have to acknowledge that. There's no way he's getting through that whole trial without getting convicted of one or two charges. And frankly, if he only got convicted of 2 felony charges out of 34, that would be fucking amazing. It's more likely he'll get convicted by all of them or half of them, or if he's, you know, if Alvin Bragg's having a bad day and he only gets convicted of a fourth of them, meaning 12 of them, doesn't matter. It's over. It's over for his political career. It's over for his life. And then these other court cases, they'll come, and he'll get buried there too, but he will have already been put down by the Manhattan District case.
Yeah, being convicted makes a huge difference. But just for him being exposed for the fraud that he is making a difference as well. When people realize that, you know, why are you donating money to a billionaire? You can tell even by the fundraising drying up, you know, people are not lining up to give him money to pay his legal fees. As a result, the RNC suffers for it and the other candidates suffer for it. But they're just like, no, this is a cash cow. This is a money pit. I don't know how they didn't recognize that before. Bankrupting multiple casinos, probability is the house is going to win. Even if someone does hit a jackpot, the house still wins. That's pretty much next to impossible. The trillions of dollars of debt that he put this country in, he's not good at managing money. And you think about like $1 billion he has raised since he's been out of office. Where is that money? Like, where is it? You know what I mean? Like, how do you make $1 billion in a couple of years and already you have nothing there? It's, to me, even Trump Tower, because I've seen people saying, we got to take Trump Tower. We have to take Trump Tower. It's the funniest thing to me because he doesn't own all of Trump Tower.
No.
He doesn't.
No.
He just owns certain parts of it.
Right.
So it's like you can't go and take a building that somebody else owns half of the building. You have to kind of sort that out and get to the portions where he does own. And like you said, it's mortgaged to the hilt anyway. So what are you going to get out of that? That exposure and putting him on Front Street, as we say where I'm from, just putting him on Front Street like that. You don't have to do anything else. Just put it out there and people can see for themselves. And it's the worst time for him, for people to see, because this is the stuff that's going to be fresh on people's mind when they go vote in November.
So what do you think happens?
This isn't last year or the year before that. This is just like fresh on their minds.
It's fresh on their minds, and he's starting to fade now. He's a different man than he was in 2016 and 2020. He's losing every time he turns around, and you can see he's starting to panic. But come Monday, when he's supposed to have this bond, what do you think happens? Does he get some angel coming in and giving him a bunch of money? Or does he file bankruptcy and hide his head and try to spin it as Letitia James starts to liquidate his shit? What do you think happens there?
I think eventually he will file bankruptcy, but I do think that will be his last step for him, because filing bankruptcy is admitting that you don't have it. And
Right.
I do think that he will try to put some kind of spin on it, but I could always see the Biden-Harris team being on that. If you bankrupted yourself, I think this will be like what, his 8th bankruptcy at this point.
Yeah.
You really expect for us not to expect you to bankrupt this country after you put us trillions of dollars in debt? Not only you didn't put us in debt helping people, like he wants to present himself as like the working man, which he's not, but you didn't put us in debt helping people who actually need it. You weren't housing anyone. You weren't feeding children. You weren't doing any of that. You were giving tax cuts to yourself and to your homies. That's what you were doing. And there's no way around that. So I do think he'll file. I just think that it'll be a last resort for him. I think that from now until Monday, he's just going to be begging.
He's going to be
That's it.
begging.
He's going to be begging for a handout. Yeah. I don't say that he's asking for money. I don't say that he's looking for a loan. He's looking for, I don't say any of that. I say he's begging because that's what he's doing. He's begging.
Well, and I think it's important for people to understand that if he files bankruptcy, that doesn't get him out from under having to pay E. Jean Carroll and the state of New York. He still has to pay. It might relieve some of his problems and other debts that he has, but it's going to turn his whole life upside down because he's in a different situation than he's, I would suggest that when he was filing bankruptcy, he bankrupted portions of his company, like Trump College, not the whole Trump company, just Trump College or Trump Steaks or
Right.
Trump Airlines or whatever. This is going to have to be him personally. And that's a much different situation. And it puts him in a bad situation going toward the election. Because, like you say, here he is bankrupting himself going toward the election. And that's going to be akin to getting a felony conviction. People will look at it the same way.
Yeah.
The big question here is, even now as he sits before he gets any money from anybody, we have to really look at the national security risk he is. When Brett Kavanaugh was going to be made a justice on the Supreme Court, he owed a lot of money. And then all of a sudden it got paid back real quick. And the reason they did that is because if you're deep in debt, you're susceptible to blackmail or any number of things. If Donald Trump is getting money from foreign countries, oligarchs in this country, he is vulnerable. He is susceptible to blackmail or some kind of criminal leverage. And that's something that's got to be considered too. Even if everything goes well for him, the fact that he owes as much money as he does makes him a threat to this country.
I look at it like this. He sold us down the river when he had money rolling in hand over fist.
Right.
When he was in the White House. He sold us down. I mean, just for the sake of doing it, because at that time he didn't need to, he didn't have to, but he did it because he's greedy and because he's selfish and he thinks about nobody else but himself. That's why he did it. But you put him in a position to where he is financially strapped and his ego is being crushed and he has something to prove that he does have this money. Just think about that for a second.
Yeah.
When you give him a reason to do it, how dangerous is he when he had no problem doing it when he didn't have a reason to do it? You know what I mean? It's so dangerous. It's so dangerous. And like we were talking about this before, but when we were talking about him getting access to classified information, I was like looking into it. And there's no law that we have to do that. It's just a tradition. It's the norms. And there's a guy, F.P. Wellman, that I watch. He's on Midas Touch, but I watch him on his own network outside of Midas Touch. And he said one of the things that he critiques Biden for and his administration is we're going to norms and tradition our way into fascism. You know, like norms and traditions, yes, they should be respected if it's a mutual respect.
Right.
It's not respected mutually at this point. Why would you risk, even if I think I was reading and I could be wrong, if there's anybody that knows better than me, please send an email because I want to know. They, from what I could understand, and it's so conflicting on the reporting, if the level of information that he's going to get is that they're going to give him classified information, but it's like the bare bones, bare minimum, basic, watered down, non-threatening type of information. But for me, it's classified for a reason. I don't think he should have access to it, no matter how minute it may be. I
Yeah.
don't think I don't think he's earned that privilege. He's dangerous. And that type of information should not be in the hands of somebody like Donald Trump, like ever. And I
Absolutely.
don't see why we would be doing that just because it's the tradition and it's the normal thing to do. I don't agree with that at all, not
Oh,
even a little bit.
yeah, I want to talk about that a little bit more when we get back because that is a troubling situation. And given the circumstances, he probably should not get classified documents. But let's talk about that when we get back. We'll take a quick break and we will be right back. We're back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Old Soul is our regular guest on the program on Thursdays, and here she is. Now, Old, before we took a break, you brought up a subject that I think is worth talking about even more so, and that is the customary tradition of when you have a presidential election. You know, we have a sitting president, an incumbent, and of course, he will get all the classified documentations because he's running the country. But it is customary to give the opponent, the other candidate, some of the classified information. I'm guessing it's not the same as what Joe Biden would get, but he does get some. But that is problematic because we have a guy who is indicted for mishandling classified documents, potentially disseminating
Exactly.
classified documents. So the question is, are they going to give him this classified information? Now, if I understood this right, not only as a candidate, but a former president, you can be read in on some classified documents. And when Joe Biden took office and that prospect was there for Donald Trump, he said, no, I don't think Donald Trump is getting the classified documents a normal former president would get. I may be wrong about that. And if anybody listening can set me straight, by all means, do that. But it's going to be interesting to see if they bend in this situation because that can cause nothing but trouble by giving Donald Trump more classified documents.
Yeah, I was reading into it and I wanted to see why we would even do something like that. And from my understanding, it's just so that the person, they have a 50-50 chance and they want them to be as prepared as possible on
Yeah.
day one. And so, of course, they're preparing them ahead of time. It's an easy way to combat that when it comes to Trump. He's never prepared for anything. He
Yeah.
didn't read classified information when he was supposed to. And now all of a sudden you're going to give him information to be prepared. Um, and then it, it's hard for me to wrap my mind around why that would even be a conversation, but apparently it is a conversation. I've been seeing that the answer was no. And then I saw that it was, well, yeah, but it's not going to be anything dangerous. I don't think he should get it at all, no matter how small it is. And
Well,
I'm pretty hard pressed to find anybody else that disagrees with that.
I think it's reasonable to think that because of the trouble he's in and because he is desperate and because desperate people do
Mhm.
crazy shit and then they
Yeah.
rationalize it after the fact, it's conceivable if he has some classified documents and he's about ready to go to jail or have all his money taken, who's to say he doesn't take classified documents and hold it hostage? Oh, you fucked up. You gave me this classified document. You better ease up on me or I'm going to expose this. Now, if he does that, he'll
Yeah.
go to fucking jail too for that. But it's putting us in a situation where we could have a whole nother mess that's beyond what we're dealing with now. It's just asking for trouble. It's like it's like if I took my granddaughter and put her in a room with a table full of candy and say, honey, don't eat the candy. I'm going to go out to the bathroom for about 5 minutes. Just don't eat the candy. She'll look at me and go, I won't eat the candy. And that shit will be gone by the time I get back. It's like a child. They can't help themselves. And Donald Trump is essentially a child. I just can't think of what positivity would be gained by giving Donald any classified documents. And I can only imagine really bad shit happening if he gets them.
Not only that, but didn't he just have Viktor Orban at Mar-a-Lago?
Yeah, yeah. Great guy.
I mean, he has him there. And I think there's like an open door policy with the Saudis, right?
Yep.
Like, if I was the press secretary or Joe Biden or anybody in the administration, and I was asked that question, I would just laugh. Like, you asking me that with a straight face? Get out of here. Like, it wouldn't be a logical response because that doesn't compute logic in my brain. But I can't say one way or the other because I'm reading like no, and then I'm also reading that it'll be a watered down version of whatever, just to respect norms and tradition, I'm guessing. But I can't say for sure which way, but the last that I checked, he was going to get it, just not like a detailed version. I know that like Obama, Bush, like, but they still get classified information. Right. I know that he cut Trump off. So right. As of like right now, Trump isn't like other former presidents where he has access to this information. But since he is the nominee for the Republican Party, from my understanding, he's supposed to like start getting that information.
Well, the saving grace here is that Donald Trump doesn't read. It'd have to be read to him, and then he'd have to be able to comprehend it. And the likelihood of that is probably slim, unless there are cartoons or some coloring options, he probably isn't going to pay too much attention to it. So I'm not really that worried about it. I think they would probably, just appease the situation, but not give him anything fucking dangerous, like it's, yeah. You don't give a toddler a load gun and a steak knife and say, go have fun. Cause that's what it would be like giving Donald Trump this kind of situations. He's a desperate man, and giving him volatile materials is just not a smart move. So it'll be interesting to see how that all fleshes out. You were talking about norms.
I'm hoping he gets nothing, like nothing at all. I'm really hoping like watered down version, nothing. He doesn't need it. No. And he's not going to be prepared anyway. I remember when Obama did absolutely everything in his power to prepare Trump for his administration. And he did absolutely nothing but take all of that preparation and wipe his butt with, well, not his butt because he wears diaper, but burn it. He didn't take heed to any information, to any wisdom, any advice, anything. A play-by-play pandemic book, he disposed of it. You know what I mean? Like a pandemic that can affect this entire country, the world, meant nothing to him. You know what I mean? The animosity and his level of vindictiveness, it knows no end. I do think that if he did get a second term, it will be the same thing that happened with Obama. It's just undoing every single thing that Joe Biden has done. Classified information at that point to him, and he wouldn't even care about it at that point, other than to sell it and make himself a buck or two.
Right. Well, today is
it's unfathomable to me that it's even a conversation.
Today is March 21st. And if I understand this correctly, this government is set to shut down on March 22nd, meaning our House of Representatives need to get to getting, even though they keep delaying the time, and they need to come up with some answers regarding the budget and spending bills and that sort of thing. Now, I would be worried about that given how short the time is. But what troubles me even more is yesterday, they spent all day in hearings trying to impeach Joe Biden. I mean, Jesus Christ, you've got no evidence. Your witness is arrested, is in jail, and is found to be a Russian asset. We have another witness that is somehow connected to China and is in jail. When do you decide you got nothing? We better stop. They just refuse to do it. And yesterday's hearings, I didn't watch much of it. I know you watched some of it. It was basically a shooting gallery for Democrats to take pot shots at these dumb fucks and make fun of them.
You know, what my grandmother would say, it's like catching fish in a barrel.
Yeah.
That's what it was. I just want to say that I really don't. I don't think that the Republican Party wants to do this. I was seeing Comer Simpson sit there, face red, and he actually looked like he was going to pop. I don't know, like his face was red and it just kind of looked like his skin was tight. He really did look like he was just going to pop. I was thinking about like the carnival, you know how you shoot the water into the balloon and the balloon pop? Like that's what he looked like, but he was just red.
Yeah.
They don't want to do this and they don't want to be there. They do have a choice. However, they are choosing to do what Donald Trump is telling them to do. I think part of this is Donald Trump, he can't do rallies like he used to. He's not being able to get his message out there effectively. And so what he's doing is he's using the House and these hearings to get his message out there. When I was listening to, what's his name, Jim Jordan, his opening statement was just pretty much regurgitating what Trump says at his rallies about the witch hunt, the this, the that, that's all. Like that was his opening statement. That's all he said. Like it was like he was reading what Trump printed out on a piece of paper and handed to him.
Right.
That's what that was. So I do think that Trump is using them to get his message out there. And that's the only thing that those hearings are for. I don't think they want to do this. I think that they know they don't have a pathway here. I know that they are going to make a criminal recommendation. It's not going to do anything or go anywhere. And I don't think that they're going to stop there because they're going all the way back to like 2015 for Hunter Biden's phone records.
Right.
I do think that they're just going to keep going and going and going because that's what Trump wants them to do. I don't think that this is anything that they want to do at all. They're just doing what Trump is telling them to do, and that's it. You don't even see the same kind of like when they first started these hearings, they had all this gusto and this esteem, and they were like hardcore and they were pretty combative. They were just pretty much taking it because they don't want to do it. They don't want to be there. If you look at their body language, it's torture to them, just like it is to the rest of us. But this is what Trump wants them to do, and they're doing it.
Well, this is perfect evidence of just how weak Donald Trump is. People want to make comparisons to 2016 and 2020. Donald Trump has never been he's never been weaker. He is a horribly weak candidate. And these hearings are evidence of it because, as you say, he's telling the Republicans what to do. They have no evidence. They have no witnesses. The witnesses they've had have been debunked and are now in jail. I mean, it's an absolute laughingstock that they're even having these hearings. I know Representative Swalwell gave a list of 10 reasons why the impeachment is over. Moskowitz came in with a Vladimir Putin mask. I mean, it was a fucking silly ass circus. And it would be hilarious if we weren't sitting on the edge of a government shutdown when the House Republicans and the House Democrats should be focusing on getting this budget bill done so we don't close down the country. And the fucking thing about it is they're doing this at their peril. But if they don't get the bill done and the government shuts down, that costs the Republicans too. They can't win for losing. Everything they do is a failure. And this is why I don't think the Republicans have any chance in November.
You know it's bad when Newsmax anchors are asking them point blank, when are you going to drop this? When are you going to let this go? When are we going to move on to something different? And I remember Megyn Kelly, she said something after the the Brit Bianco, but it's so true when she said Republicans have like so many opportunities to just be normal, just do something normal, but they can never do anything just normal, and it makes them look bad. So even if it's not factually there, if you even give the appearance that it's serious and it's a regular congressional hearing, that could make a difference.
Right.
But how do you give the appearance of it being legitimate when you have Marjorie Taylor Greene like just chomping at the bit for the first opportunity to show Hunter Biden's new pictures on national television? You know what I mean? So it's just kind of like it was a joke from the start. But again, these are non-serious people. So what do you expect? Moskowitz with the Putin mask. It was like the ultimate troll. And then I kind of felt some way at first, like, why are you doing this in the halls of Congress? Like, this is just so unserious. And then I had to sit back and think about it. Like, he is just giving a visual of how ridiculous it is. You know what I mean? So when I saw it from that point, I was able to laugh. I looked at it as inappropriate, but I mean, what else can you do when this is what the base is seeing? And so you can't tell them that it's ridiculous. You literally have to show them,
Right.
because that's how they engage in politics. So I get why he did it. And I laughed at it. I was just like, this really is ridiculous. And he is literally not speaking, but showing them how ridiculous this is. And even the witness, when he sat there and he even pointed out to us, say, this senator right here is in Congress right now, but he was with me when we were doing these underhanded deeds, trying to get dirt in Russia with Putin and his associates. That congressman right there, he was with us when we did it. Like, how do you as a congressman sit there and face the world when somebody just put you on blast like that? Like, you have to kind of care about your reputation and how you present yourself to others. I don't know how he sat there and took that.
Well, that's
it
a
was
good
the
point.
truth, so there was nothing he could say to combat it. But
Well, I think they are too far down the rabbit hole. They're not willing to give in. They're not willing to admit they're wrong. And part of it is because they're worried about the wrath of Donald Trump. If they don't do Donald Trump's bidding, they're going to see their names in Truth Social or whatever the fuck they're afraid of. So they're just not going to give in. And that's typical of the Republicans. No matter how wrong they are, they never give in. And
what
it's
wrath,
funny.
though? Why do they? What's the wrath, though? If you can see, any candidate that Trump backs loses.
Yeah.
The guy that goes against, like in the Republican Party, if you are the Republican that goes against Trump, you're winning your election. If
Right.
you are the Republican that's rolling with Trump and he endorses you, you're losing.
Yeah. Well, the thing about it is Donald Trump has successfully put everybody in fear of things they don't even need to be afraid of. They're worried about him talking shit about him. They're worried about the Trump-lefucks coming out and attacking him. They're worried about getting bad press for upcoming elections. Donald Trump's done a great job of pigeonholing these people and scaring them to death, whether it's realistic or not. They just won't give in. They just keep doing what they're doing. That's why I wonder if they haven't resolved themselves to the fact that they're just crashing the Republican Party in November. And hopefully Donald Trump will go away and they can figure out a way to rebuild. It'll take a while, but that may be what they think their only option is at this point.
It really is such a parallel dynamic. Just sitting back from me watching it of an abuser.
Oh,
And this
absolutely.
is like, it's such an abusive relationship, the dynamics between Trump and the Republican Party. And then Trump tries to put the same dynamics on the rest of us when he says things like, if I'm not reelected, this country is going to hell. It's the same thing as an abuser saying, if you're not with me, nobody else is going to want you. You're nothing without me.
Right.
It's the It's the exact same thing. So for me, like coming for an abusive relationship, I think maybe I have that hindsight and I can look and I can see that. And it's kind of like they don't see it. And I'm hoping that for the people who are diehard and who are supporting him, that once he's out of the ecosystem and they are out of that relationship and they're able to get some clarity, that they can see it for what it is. But it is so abusive. It is so abusive that they are afraid of someone who is powerless unless you give them that power. And they are just giving it to him and he's feeding off of that. I'm looking forward to the day to where he no longer has that much power over so many people, because as horrible as their policies and their ideas are, nobody deserves to just be abused in that way, like over and over and over again. And they do deserve better than that. And they deserve better out of the elected officials than what they're getting. And it's just such a sad thing for me to see that dynamic on such a mass scale. It's just so sad when you think about it.
It is, but it really is the epitome of abused relationship. I'll give
Yeah.
you an example. You were in an abusive relationship and you ultimately got out, thank God. And that took a lot of strength. But there were times prior to that that you didn't get out. You knew how bad it was. And I'll guarantee you, somebody asked you, if it's that bad, why don't you leave? And that's a good question. And a question that's hard to answer if you're
Yeah.
in that position. But you probably were in that position. Other people have been in that position. I've been in that position too. If you're being abused, why don't you just leave? And and I don't even
Yeah.
know what the answer to that is.
You're afraid.
Yeah,
You're afraid, one, because this person is dangerous. And a lot of times when you do try to leave and the reaction that you get from that other person when you try to leave, that reaction is like, it's so hardcore that you know what the consequences are if you do leave.
right.
Not only that, but people, abusers put themselves in a position to where they have power over you. So like at that point, it's like, well, I don't want you to work. I want you to stay at home with the baby, that type of stuff. So I'm at home with my daughter by myself. And I know that if I leave, I don't have a checking account. I don't have a savings account. My car is in his name. How am I going to pay bills? How am I going to feed my baby? Like you really do ask yourself them questions and then you try to justify it within yourself. Like you try to say, well, I'm going to stay because I don't want my daughter to have come from a single parent household, or I'm going to stay because I don't want my daughter to struggle financially. And that's not fair to her if I do that. Or you make yourself feel like the selfish thing to do is to leave.
Right.
The unselfish thing to do is to stay.
Right.
And I'm trying to figure out how they justify to themselves. And I do think maybe they're telling themselves if they were to abandon Trump, they're going to lose a large chunk of the Republican Party. So it's kind of like, we don't want to isolate these people over here. So we need to stay with Trump so that we can keep those people. Like they're telling themselves that politically they are nothing without Trump. But at some point, they do have to go out on that limb and see what happens when they shed that baggage and they get rid of him, what life is going to be like after that. And I don't think that they can picture their life without him at this point
Right.
because he's so intertwined in everything. Like he pretty much has taken over the RNC. His bases are erratic. They're dangerous. Some of them are just crazy. So he's so intertwined with them that it's so hard to separate themselves from him. And it's pretty difficult to imagine the party without him at this point because he's such a dominating figure. And I do think part of that is justified because it will crumble without him. But what they can't see is that once it's crumbled, then we can rebuild it and we can
Right.
rebuild it in a better image than what it is now. And that's the part that they're not seeing. It's like, yeah, it's gonna crumble and it's gonna suck and we're gonna have to pull ourselves up out of this. They're not seeing that part of it. Like you can pull yourself up out of it. You can rebuild your party. You can be strong. It's just going to take time. And maybe that's a part of it too. Maybe they're lazy and they don't want to take the time to rebuild themselves after what they allowed to happen.
I think
Maybe
that
that's it.
I think you can say the Republican Party is like an abused family members. They are
Mhm.
abused. But see what you think about this. I think the Democrats maybe not in the same situation as the Republicans being abused close family members, but I think Democrats in this country suffer from PTSD by way of Donald Trump.
Absolutely.
He's not our
Mhm.
daddy, but he's caused enough pain and trouble that people are afraid.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you how it comes out too. I talked to somebody the other day, and they aren't Trump fans. They're Democrats. They said, I just know Donald Trump's going to win. Donald Trump's going to win.
Mhm.
They've watched him wiggle through all this bullshit for so many years. They just assume in their mind the worst and that he is going to win in the end because he always wins in the end. And we are going to suffer mightily for it. Now, of course, I disagree with that because things change. The paradigm has changed. Donald Trump is not the same person as when he was winning. He's now losing, and it's not going to get better. But people, I've talked about this before, people DM me and email me, and they are absolutely terrified at the prospect. I mean, this
Mhm.
person I was talking about, they looked at me and they said, I know you say he's not going to win, but I disagree. I think he's going to win. I go, based on what? Well, everything I'm hearing. From who? Well, in the news and all this stuff and the polls and all this stuff. See, this is what the media is doing to these people, as well as Donald Trump is abusing Republicans and scaring Democrats because of how they report things. This media is abusing all of us, misinforming all of us,
Right.
leading us down a path that isn't true, and in doing so, scaring the shit out of a lot of people that, don't haven't dug into this or really know all the facts. But between Trump, the Republicans, and the media, this entire country is being abused one way or another, and it's fucking appalling.
Yeah, I've looked at it as a way to the monster is the shadow. You know what I mean? So now somebody walks and the shadow is like all big and tall, and you turn around and it's just this regular person. It's like Donald Trump is the shadow. He's big and he's scary. You turn around and he's just a regular guy. So the monster is the shadow. The person himself is never as big as their shadow, and their shadow
No,
is always the monster. That's how I look at it. But then also, Donald Trump uses fear tactics for the rest of us who can see through his nonsense, to where he can go on Truth Social and say something about somebody, even just regular random citizens, to ruin their lives. Look what they're doing to Fani Willis in Georgia. So he uses people as an example to where if you come after me, this is what I will do. So it keeps people in fear. There's certain people who won't file lawsuits against Trump. There's certain people who won't speak out against him because they can look at other examples of other people and they can see what happens to those other people. So even he doesn't have to do anything to you directly. He's constantly banging up and beating up on other people to keep you afraid because you know what could happen if he targets you next. He does the same thing in Congress when they don't vote the way that he wants them to vote. They get death threats, their spouses get death threats, and all this other stuff goes on. So it does keep people locked in that fear. Regular people feel that fear all the time, that, people now, they don't look at the American flag as the same because, those are Trump flags.
right.
So people are literally afraid to have an American flag in their yard or wherever because they're afraid that they're going to be perceived a certain way or other people are going to think this way. So fear just keeps people locked in and kind of like I don't want to say complacency, but it keeps them silent to not speak out against it. Because if they do, they have so many examples of what could happen if you choose to do that. It does take a strong person to stand up and speak out against Trump and the Republican Party. But I do think that there's a lot of loud silence. And we can see that through voting, because even though people are not vocal about their opinions and how they feel, when they go into that booth and they cast their vote, that's their voices.
Right.
So there is a lot of like loud silence is what I call it, that people are not hearing from, people are not seeing. And then all of a sudden when election goes away that they wasn't expecting it, everybody is shocked. And it's like, no, all of those silenced voices are being spoken through their votes. And I think that's the importance of voting, is because even though you're not verbalizing anything, when it goes to voting, that's how you're making your voice heard.
Well,
I do think people can make a difference, but they're just, for whatever reason, they're choosing not to say anything. And it could be out of fear. People have families to feed, they have children to think about, you know. I don't think you get the amount of death threats that other content creators do, but I've seen some of those death threats and they are not pretty, let me tell you.
I don't get death threats. I don't get death threats at all. But Donald Trump does something that is stereotypical of a narcissist. He always talks in extremes, like it's going to be a bloodbath, or I'm the greatest that ever lived. It's always an extreme, and it always is intended to stir emotions in people. And when Donald Trump says it's going to be a bloodbath, people know what that means, and they picture in their mind a repeat of January 6th, except them winning, which makes no sense because it's a much different situation. Those mass attacks, they aren't going to happen because Donald Trump isn't in control and neither are the Republicans, and they aren't going to be able to accomplish that at all. It's just not going to happen. But Donald Trump has struck fear in a lot of people.
Has his, and he has his little enforcers is what I'm calling them. It's the same thing. Like if you're in an abusive relationship and you leave, you know there's going to be that mama, that auntie, that whoever who's going to try to call you and talk you to coming back around and all that other kind of stuff, right? I saw Steve Bannon telling an audience, and I believe he was talking to some college students, and he was saying if Donald Trump is not elected, be prepared to go to jail. And I thought to myself, that's rich. And one thing that these people should know about that is on January 6th, Steve Bannon and all these other people who are telling you to be prepared to go to jail, where were they when you were storming the Capitol? Where were they when you were locked up and you needed your pardon before Donald Trump got out of office? So they're sitting there and they're telling you, sacrifice yourself, you go to jail, you do this, you do that, and we're just going to sit back and watch. That's what they're telling these people. The thing that I have for them is that you're not Donald Trump. You don't get to appeal. You don't get to stay out. You don't get to get judges on you don't get to do none of that.
Right.
We've had some reform in the criminal justice system. I just came from a prison. There's plenty of beds that's available for you. So if you want to listen to Donald Trump, you want to listen to Steve Bannon, you want your bloodbath, you want to go to jail, you want all this other stuff, go ahead and do it. Because there's some people on the inside that they need some commissary. That's as nice as I could put that.
I'm curious if you've been paying attention to what's going on down in Florida with Judge Aileen Cannon. She may have stepped too far. You know, she made this announcement that given the choice to the prosecution and the defense team, we're either going to take all the documents and let the jurors look at all the documents, which is outrageous, or we're just going to agree to the fact that presidents can decide what is personal and what is not personal. There is no good or legal choice amongst them. Are we at that point where Jack Smith says, all right, it's enough. She's fucked up enough. We need to go to the 11th Circuit and get her ass shut down?
If this isn't enough, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
I've been paying attention to Florida for a completely different reason, because there's some stuff going on in Haiti, and Florida is close to Haiti. And so I was just looking like, man, this immigration bill that they shut down, it could really impact Florida. Right. And as much as I don't like Ron DeSantis and the makeup of Florida, I do care about the people in Florida, and I don't think they should have to suffer as a result of that. So that's the only reason I've been paying attention to Florida. But if this isn't a reason that I don't know what else will do it, because to me, that's kind of like blackmail in a way.
Yeah.
to where, okay, if you want to take him to trial, then this classified information that's sensitive and can be detrimental to this country, yeah, we just gonna get this to everyday regular citizens and hope that they don't tell anybody. To me, that's an ultimatum that she's given to him. And I do think that it's grounds for him to do it. I've kind of like resigned myself to the fact, so I'm not worried about it, that
Yeah.
if Jack Smith does it, he does it. If he doesn't, he doesn't. That's kind of how I've been looking at it, because I don't know what the reasons for him not doing it up to this point. I did read the comment section last week. I was sick, so I wasn't like engaging like I normally do. But someone did say that when it comes to Jack Smith, he knows that he has one shot and one shot only. And so that's the reason why he has to make sure that he doesn't have just like one reason, but he has multiple reasons, like multiple ducks lined up as to why she should be dismissed off of that case. So I do think he has like a bunch of like geese lined up, and this is like the mother duck that is like heading all of this. So I think this is more than a reason for him to do it. I think he should do it. Whether he will or not, I don't know.
Well, I think he has to.
I don't know.
One thing I learned about this situation that I did not know, and it makes the situation even more scary. He can send an appeal to the 11th Circuit prior to the start of the trial.
Mhm.
But once the trial starts, she can dismiss this whole fucking thing and there's nothing he can do. So if he's going to do something, he has to do it before the trial. And Jack Smith is not a stupid man. I'm sure I mean, every fucking media commentator is seeing what she asked there. They know it's stupid. They know it's illegal. They know it's ridiculous. So certainly Jack Smith knows. I just don't know when he's going to do it, but he, without question, has to do it before the trial starts. Because if he doesn't, he's
Mhm.
fucked. He's at the mercy of Aileen Cannon, and I would not want to be in that position.
No, because this is a woman who has to be, and I call her a woman because I don't think she's earned the title of being called a justice or a jurist. I just
Oh,
don't. But this woman is in charge of the jury, sentencing, what evidence is allowed in, what evidence isn't, what's objected to, what's sustained. Like
yeah,
she could sway the trial in so many different ways, and that
yeah.
is so much power. Um, I I don't understand why she's still there. I don't get it, and I just try to tell myself that I'm not Jack Smith, so maybe there's stuff that he knows that I don't know. I was rationalizing it to myself to where he was purposely trying to keep her there, trying to say to himself that if Trump gets convicted under this judge with all of these biases, there's no way that he's going to win an appeal. So maybe he was looking at it from an appellate aspect, but at this point, that is not worth what it is that she's trying to risk right now, which is literally national security. Like,
Well,
what?
yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Absolutely. And the thing about it is that if he goes to trial and she dismisses or games it for him,
mhm,
prosecution can't appeal. There's no do-over. It's called double jeopardy. If they find him
mhm.
not guilty or they dismiss the charges, he's done. He got away with it. And I got to think that Jack Smith is just doesn't have the stomach for that.
He doesn't have the stomach for it. We don't have the stomach for it. There's millions and millions and millions of people that they just want to see justice. They don't want to see a traitor to this country just get away with it just because, you know. Not when there is um, an ex-guy from the Air Force that just got sentenced to 40 years for far less than this.
Yeah,
Because the only thing that's saying is that Trump is above the law. You can get in trouble for it, but he won't,
right.
because he used to have this title, a title that he didn't earn, a title that he doesn't deserve. And when you look at like his his advisors, his chief of staffs, his former vice president saying this man is unfit for office. He shouldn't be reelected.
Right.
I don't understand how all of that is overlooked at this point. And for me, I do think that Cannon is complicit in Trump's crimes at this point. She's enabling it. She's
Absolutely.
pretty much helping him at this point. I don't understand how you can be complicit and be an unbiased judge at the same time.
And
That don't go together.
if we're talking about complicity, we have to look at the other court case in Georgia. I know you have some thoughts on this. We talked about it before. We probably should talk about it again. Of course, Judge McAfee in the Fulton County, Georgia, ultimately he found that Fani Willis would not be disqualified. And that's not surprising given there was no evidence, nothing that affected the case. She should not have been disqualified. So we think, cool, we got past that, so we'll get the trial. But then, of course, Donald Trump and his lawyers come and say, well, we'd like to appeal that. And then Judge McAfee says, yeah, that's cool. You can appeal it. Now, Judge McAfee seemed like a pretty straight-laced, albeit conservative judge, young guy. But now it's starting to look a lot like Aileen Cannon. Why would he allow that? He made the decision as to not disqualifying her. Why would he say, yeah, it's okay to go and appeal this and make it longer? It does seem like there's a little complicity there.
I don't look at it like that when it comes to him. I look at it as it's purely political. That's how I look at it with him. You can tell the difference of before the election was on everybody's mind versus how he's ruling now. It's like night and day. And then I do think that he's been trying to straddle that fence versus saying, yeah, she didn't do anything wrong, but technically you can't give the appearance of impropriety, right? So since there's that appearance there, we're going to get rid of Wade and then we take away the appearance. But of course, Trump and his cohorts, they are never satisfied. So of course they're going to appeal it. And he's just like, okay, yeah, go ahead and file your appeal, but I'm going to keep going forward with the trial. To me, that's kind of like straddling the fence, playing both sides of the fence. He's appeasing them, keeping these people over here from being upset. And I know some people have a problem with him being a part of the Federalist Society. But when you look at the people who are trying to get Trump removed from the ballot, getting him disqualified for being in office, the Federalist Society is like financing all of that. These are the people in the Republican Party who are the driving force to make sure Trump is not reelected again. It's these people right here. We don't like their policies. They're horrible people when it comes to that. But as far as like who was in office within the Republican Party, they are like 1,000% against Donald Trump. And he is a part of that. So I don't think he wants to be reelected or Trump to be reelected, or I don't think he wants to do that. I just think that he is caught up in his political aspirations and he shouldn't be. And that's the part that I don't like about it. I just don't think that he is going to bat for Trump. I just think that he is looking at his political future, which
well, and I think that's what we need to clarify. We need to clarify what you were saying there. You said he's making these decisions and doing these things for political reasons. And it's not political reasons to benefit Donald Trump per se. It's for his own political enrichment. He is up for reelection. So now he's having to look at being in Georgia, running for reelection as a federal judge, and having to appease the dumb Trump-la-fucks as well as the normal people. And as you say, he's riding the fence here. And it's not a good look for him because it makes a lot of normal people question his intentions.
Right. It's keeping that base out there happy. And then also trying to do the right thing legally. I do think he's straddling that fence. And I do think it's just political reasons, because when I look at Donald Trump and his relationship with the Federalist Society, like these people want him gone. They want his head on a stick. They are like doing every single thing that they can to make sure that he's not reelected. Even if you look at, donations and that type of thing, they really are going against him. The difference now is there's a lack of respect for them that used to be there. They don't have that same respect and power that they used to, because the electric, a lack of better words, have been dumbed down. These are people who are thinking that Putin, he's not an enemy of the American people. Like, they are literally on camera saying that. I
Right.
just saw Adam give an interview the other day. That's so crazy. We were kind of like texting about it. And I don't know if it was on his channel or if he put it on Midas Touch, but there was a guy that he was talking to, and the guy literally said, Putin's not against the American people. He's not a bad person. People don't like Putin because he gets along with Trump. Like, these are what these people are saying.
Right.
So they don't have respect for the office. They don't have the respect for the party. They don't have respect for the Federalist Society, the jury system. They don't have respect for anything at this point. The only thing that they have respect for is Donald Trump. And it's a very culty mentality among them. And I do think that he's thinking about that as he's making these rulings. And I can say that they're irrelevant. You can say that they're irrelevant, but I'm not in Georgia. I'm not in the
Right.
South. I can't
Right.
say that they are irrelevant in these places. That's like going to Marjorie Taylor Greene's district and saying that MAGA is irrelevant.
Yeah.
You know, that it depends on where you are, what space you're in, whether they're relevant or not. And I think where he's at, he's seeing them as relevant.
But
Unfortunately.
I think we're seeing a shift. For the longest time, the Federalist Society, the Republicans, the big donors and stuff, they stuck with Donald Trump because they saw him as a winner. But I think now it's starting to set in that Donald Trump is
Yeah.
making these people look bad, making them look foolish, and they're now starting to pull away. Like you said, the Federalist, there was a report earlier yesterday talking about big donors who were giving money to Nikki Haley. They're pulling out, and they're not
Yes,
giving
I
it to Donald
saw
Trump.
that.
They're giving it to Joe Biden. That is a telling
Yes,
situation.
I read that, and I was seeing that the wealthy Republican donors are donating to Biden, and they are openly saying that Donald Trump is bad for the economy. They don't
Right.
care that he's not bad for the country, but they're sitting there saying, hey, if Donald Trump gets in office again and he gives away all this money, we don't have people to buy our goods and we don't have people to buy our products. When people are like poor and they can't afford a place to live, they cannot pump money back into the economy. Now, they could have asked you this 20 years ago and you could have told them that. But for whatever reason, it's like a light bulb went off in their head and they like, he's not good for the economy. We should try to help keep Biden in office, because now they do have income that's freed up. Even with student debt relief, people have more disposable income than what they had under the Trump administration. And they are buying goods and products and doing all this other kind of stuff. And these people are making money hands over fist. Yeah, they're raising prices and they price gouging like crazy. But the only reason that they're able to do that is because of Biden's policies and his
Well, when it comes down to it,
it's crazy to me that they're just now realizing that.
it's about money when it comes down to it. And all they know is the
Yeah.
economy is flourishing now. When Donald
Yeah.
Trump left office, the Dow Jones was at 19,200 points. It is currently at about 38,500 or 700 points. It's more than doubled what it was.
Yeah.
That means money in the
Mhm.
pockets of wealthy people. And as much as
Yeah.
they have a distaste for Democrats, you've got a pretty serious contrast here. You've got an economy that's flourishing, or Donald Trump, who you know is going to crash it, because he's not just a regular Republican that will just adjust things and it won't be much of a change. It's going to be
Mhm.
from light to darkness. And even the Republicans who are concerned about money can see the writing on the wall, and they're not even willing to buy into Donald Trump at this point.
Yeah, you're like the first person I talked to that read that report. And I was looking at it, I'm like, why are these Republican donors like giving all this money to Biden? Like, what's going on? Because I was reading about Biden's fundraising. And I'm sitting here like, man, I can't wait till, Trump's report come out and we can see what he really is making or whatever. And then I was just reading it and I'm seeing like the donors and I'm like, well, these Nikki Haley donors are like really giving Biden all this money. And then when I started seeing like, they really do know, they don't think, they know that Trump is bad for the economy. Do you know how bad you have to be like a Republican millionaire, billionaire donating money to Joe Biden.
Yeah. Well, in
Like,
addition to that, another report came out recently that there are another bunch of Republican donors with big money that are pulling together $50 million specifically to shoot down Donald Trump, to fight against Donald Trump. So you have the Democrats going against Donald Trump, and now you've got Republicans putting up ads and stuff. Don't vote for Donald Trump. I mean, this is the way it's going right now. People might be afraid that he's going to win, but everything that's happening is the worst thing I've ever heard happen for a candidate, especially a Republican. It's usually kind
yeah,
of close between them. So people say, I like the Republicans, I'm going with that. But the contrast is so horrible and so horrible with
these are
Donald Trump.
big,
They don't want part of that.
yeah, these are big dollar donors who are currently, right now, today, benefiting from Trump's tax cuts,
Yeah,
who are saying, yeah, that guy that's going to come in here and give us all this tax cuts and this money, nah, that's not a good move. We're going to give money to the other guy. Like, that's such a huge thing to do.
well, and
I,
and they can see the writing on the wall too. They know Joe Biden is going to win, so they've got to create some goodwill with Joe Biden if they're going to be stuck with him for the next 4 years.
yeah, I do think that the Federalist Society, they do hide behind the Constitution absolutists. They do hide behind that. I don't look at it so much as for their reason. I just look at their actions. And right now, their action is they are banding together and they are going against Trump with large dollar donors. And the thing about it is, Trump has tapped out all of his small dollar donations where he got so much money from. Like,
Yeah,
he's finessed these people to where they don't have anything else to give.
right.
And they don't have anything else to give at a time where he needs it the most. You know what I mean? So it's like, you could have, when you didn't need it, you could have left these people alone, but you sucked them dry. And now that they don't have anything and you need it, there's nothing there to give. I think that's where greed gets you.
It does.
Nowhere.
It's like the athlete or the entertainer that thinks this
Mm,
$50 million a year is going to come every
mhm.
year forever. And there always
Yeah.
is an end. And when there's an end and you haven't prepared for that end, you're fucked. That's why athletes and entertainers end up going bankrupt. That's why Donald Trump is currently going bankrupt. He talks about having cash. He went on under oath and said he had $400 million. Clearly he doesn't. So that sounds like perjury. But, Donald Trump's like anybody else in that business, but a little bit worse. Once they get money, then they put it back into something else, and then they take a loan on something else. One thing about my experience with narcissists, they may make a lot of money, but it doesn't last long because they spend it all right away. They are never flush with cash because they're too busy trying to impress people by how they're spending their money. And Donald Trump's nut to crack just to run his properties and his planes and his cars and stuff, that's a big nut. And he's going to have problems now even paying for that, let alone running for president or paying for legal fees.
Yeah, for me, it's not what Donald Trump did or what he said. It's what he is currently doing and what he is currently saying.
Right.
His court filings, he's saying, I don't have money to come up with this bond. I just don't have it. And I think one of the quotes from the filing was, it's practically impossible. It's infeasible. Like, we can't do that. But then he will still go on television and say how much money he has,
Right.
at the same time that he's asking for an appellate court to reduce his bond amount, at the same time that he's asking an appellate court for a stay, at the exact same time that he's doing this, he's also on national television bragging about how much money he has.
Right.
And to me, it's just a testament to how much he's been allowed to get away with for so long. Because if you paid attention, like after January 6th, before January 6th, after the 2020 election, when he was filing all of these court cases, what they said in their court filings and their court documents was the complete opposite of what they were saying on television to the American people. Most
Yeah.
of us can see that, but other people didn't. So he's continuing to do that to this day. It didn't work to overturn the election. Like, it didn't work then. But now when your company, your money, your livelihood, not just for yourself, but for your family is on the line, you're still doing something that has proven to not work.
Right. Well,
I don't know if that's cockiness, arrogance, stupidity. I don't know what that is, but it seems like he is unaware of his predicament. And I thought that maybe he's scared because he knows he knows the severity of his situation. I thought he was scared and he's lashing out because he knows that.
Yeah.
But he still does the opposite. It's so weird.
But that's how that mentality does it. His kryptonite is if people realize what he truly is. I mean, he is deeply insecure. He knows he's a failure. He knows he doesn't have much money. He knows that he's a loser in every way. So he comes out and says, I'm rich, I'm powerful. And he desperately needs people to believe that, because that's the only thing that props him up. Once people realize and understand that he has no money and no power, he's done. Emotionally, he's crushed, because that's all he's got. That's all he's been selling for 60 years. I'm rich, I'm powerful, so I'm special. But once people find out he's not rich or powerful or special, then he's fucking nobody. And not only does everybody around the country and around the world know he's nobody, he knows he's nobody. And that's where the crash comes.
But he does have the capacity to pause and correct course, because I've seen him do it. I think because if you look at, like, remember he used to have those rallies and he used to say, oh, it's the perfect phone call, the perfect phone call, the perfect phone call. But then once he started going to court and he files a motion to suppress the perfect phone call from the trial, all of a sudden that perfect phone call nonsense that he was saying, he stopped saying that. So there are times when he realizes that what he's filing and what he's saying publicly conflicts with itself. And so he stops doing it. He never says oh, it wasn't a perfect phone call. Like, he's not going to admit that, but he does correct course and he steers it in a different direction. Right. So I know he has the capacity to do it, but for whatever reason, and he does that several times in his court filings, like, he'll sit there and he'll brag about this and he'll brag about that, but once he files something the opposite of that, he'll stop saying it. Like, you'll just never hear him say that again. For some reason, this time he won't do it. So he has the capacity, I guess. It's different because it's financial. I guess the financial pressure that he's under is different than the criminal pressure that he's under. So I guess maybe he's separating those two worlds, and that's why he is incapable of correcting course when it comes to the financial aspect. I guess that's how he's looking at it.
The operative word there is he had the capacity to pivot, but we're in a different world now. Donald Trump was cocky and he had a lot of things working his way. He is now in panic mode. He's seeing no way out. So now everything he's doing is all reactionary, all emotional. If he had any ability to pivot and think and strategize, that's out the window now. Because when people panic, they just do anything and everything that comes to mind. And that's when they fuck up. He maybe had that ability, but he's diminished in his own mentality, his mental acuity, and he's fucking panicking. So he's lost now. As long as he continues to panic, he's fucked.
And you know what? When you said that, he did, and he did have the capacity. That is the operative word in that sentence. But then it shines light just how fast that crash happened.
Oh, yeah.
Because that was just a few months ago that he was able to do that. And now it's just a few months later, he's no longer able to do that. I mean, so that's just, it's showing how quickly that it's just going downhill.
Donald Trump doesn't believe anything's going to happen till it happens. You talked about 2 months ago, things have changed. What happened in the last 2 months? He actually had to post $91 million and scurry around and get that money. What else happened? In 3 days, 2 days, he's got to come up with $500 million. Now this shit is real. He's able to compartmentalize in his mind and say it's never going to happen. And now it's fucking happened. And that's when the panic starts.
Yeah. Very insightful that you said that.
Well, I'm
And I
brilliant.
do think it could be it could be like it could be a defense mechanism also, you know,
Yeah.
like
Oh, yeah.
he's putting up that wall and he's putting up that front to try to protect himself. But, you know, I think he's the only person that's seeing a wall. But we're seeing right through it. It's like he's putting up a wall that's made out of glass. We could see through that wall. Like, why are you putting up a wall that we can see through?
Well, like,
You know, he could just be, it could be instinctual to him too, right?
well,
Ah,
like I've told people before, you know, people might look at what I'm saying about Donald Trump as insightful. It's not really
mm,
insightful. It's that I've seen it before on a different
yeah,
scale, certainly, but with my father. All the things I'm seeing with this Donald Trump is all the things I already saw with my father. It's at a different level, it's at a smaller level, but it's all the same personality and it's all the same reaction and it's all the same trouble. At some point they get cornered and then they just lose their shit. And that's where we are with Donald Trump now. That's why there's no going
mm,
back. He's not going to get better. Everything is going to continually get worse and he will crash because they always crash.
yeah. And it's, you know, you saw what happened with your father from like beginning to end. You know what I mean? Like you got to
Yeah.
see him when he was up and you got to see what happened at the end of that when he crashed.
Yep.
With me and my abuser, I left way, way before. I never got to see him from beginning to end. Like I never get to see what happens to him at the end and how he ends up. You know what I mean? I don't plan on being able to see that, you know? So
Well, I tell
it's
you,
just a different worldview that you got to see it from start to finish. I
right.
didn't get that opportunity to see it from start to finish, but I'm gonna get to see it from start to finish with Donald Trump. And I will sit back and watch this very interesting case study. He is such an anomaly to me. I can never imagine what it would be like the day in the life of that type of psyche.
Oh, it
I
was
can't fathom that.
it's
Mm-mm.
confusing, it's chaotic, and they're constantly
Yeah.
trying to balance things. Well, I will tell you this, having gotten to see a crash, it's absolutely
Hmm.
fucking glorious. I'm looking forward to it. I am so excited about Donald Trump crashing because I know exactly what's going to happen, and it's not going to be pretty, and he's not going to end up well for it. But we're coming to the end here, old soul. We're going to wrap things up. I appreciate you coming in. It's always good to hash these things out. If I say anything,
Yeah.
if I say anything smart in these podcasts, it's because you've drawn that out of me. So I appreciate that.
Well, thank you. And I am going to forward this video to Zachary's uncle. He's going to be watching this, and I look forward to hearing what he has to say. I
Well,
really do.
and Zachary's uncle, I'll tell you what, if you want to get caught up on what's really going on, come on the show. We'll talk and I'll be nice because you seem like a nice guy. But we got to get some shit straight.
You know, he would be interesting to talk to in his current mindset because I can see him questioning more. And it's just me. I'm not telling him what to think or I'm just asking very basic, simple questions to you and I that would be just regular, like this makes sense. It's not a question. We know this. But when you are in that mindset and you are exposed to the news outlets and different things that he sees on a daily basis. So to watch somebody come out of that, I do think he would be interesting for you to have a conversation with. Now,
Well,
whether he would put his face on blast like that and tell everybody about that fog he's been living under, I could see him being prideful. I don't think that that's a bad thing because I do think there's other people out there in that same situation, predicament, that needs to hear from more people like that
well,
to just know that, you know, you can come out of that. And it could be, I don't know where it's going to go for him. I don't, but I do have hope that him questioning certain things is leading him down that right path.
yeah. The thing about it is I have a particular disdain for Trumplafucks that know exactly what's going on and want to fight against it.
Mhm.
But I also know there are a lot of people out there that have their lives and have their things that are important. They can't be in the middle of it and dig down as deep as I can or you can. And they're only hearing the noise and they're making their judgments based on their noise. I have no problem with people that have maybe heard wrong or believe wrong or just not on the right track, as long as they're willing to listen and consider and maybe change their mind if they realize that what they were thinking is wrong. Unfortunately, there's a lot of Trumplafucks. I can say, you're wrong. Here's why you're wrong. I can prove to you you're wrong. And just like an incorrigible child, they say, yeah, I'm not going to believe that. If you can
Yeah,
believe the
because there are
truth,
those people.
yeah,
Mhm.
you got to be able to
There
believe the
are those
truth.
people when you pull that, yeah, when you pull that string, it just unravels from there. But there's other people who just, no matter what, that's it. I don't understand. When you see the truth, you know the truth, you can acknowledge the truth, but you still go against it anyway.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's him
No, it doesn't
at all.
sound like him, and sounds like a fine gentleman. And hopefully, if he has any questions, he certainly can ask you. I'll answer any questions he's got. But ask questions, expect facts, check the facts, and then believe the facts. That's all you got to do. All right.
Absolutely.
Well, Old Soul, thank you very much for coming in. I always enjoy talking to you. I always look forward to this. This is one of my favorite shows. Anytime I have a listener, it's a favorite show, but you're obviously special. Everybody knows that. And uh, you're able to pull an audience that I can't pull. So I'm glad to have you on the show.
I love being here. Sick or
Uh,
not, I'll be in this chair.
all right. Well, we'll get better, get some rest. For those of you listening, I appreciate you taking the time to listen. Hope you have a great day, and we will talk to you tomorrow.